Hello, everybody. So today I want to talk about my two larger position, Tesla and Enphase. They actually used to be number one and number two, and going through my portfolio right now. And turns out they're just about number three and number four because of MicroStrategy and HIMS. MicroStrategy is kind of down today. Doesn't really matter. The stocks that used to be in a valley of despair in 22, in early 23, are now exploding to the upside. And the stocks that used to do well in 21, 22 are now in the valley of despair. Now Tesla has entered that valley of despair. Not all stocks go up at once. And the reason why these stocks are so down, depressed, right? Tesla and Enphase are down. Well, to me, it has a lot to do with the interest rates and with the fact that we keep postponing these interest rates drops. And now we're in a situation where if Powell drops interest rate before the US presidential election, it will look like a political move. So it may be that the interest rates will now be dropped after the election, a few days after the election. This all does not matter in the long run. If you actually are able to zoom out in the long run, it doesn't matter. If I look at Tesla and Enphase over as far as back as my total returns calculator goes, which is 12 years. If I look at 12 years, you can see Tesla was a 41.6% return every year for the past 12 years. Enphase was 26%. In the case of these two stocks, they both handsomely beat the triple Q. The triple Q was only 18% over the same period. So significant return difference with the triple Q. But sure, valley of despair compared to their former self, right? Because they were doing better in 21 and 20 and 22, but that's just the nature of the market, the nature of stocks. The market makes no sense, sends us a deal, in my opinion, no investment advice, sends us a deal and you either take it or you don't. That's the issue of Mr. Market, the manic depressive Mr. Market, as Ben Graham describes him. Anyways, I think we're living in a single issue market as far as I'm concerned, and it's so annoying, and there is so little discussion to be had, so little intellectual talk to be had about these stocks whenever it all takes one presser from Jay Powell to remove all of the work of these companies and to make these stocks go down just because the 10-year went up just a little bit today. Boom, stocks are down. This is so dumb. This is a dumb, mind-numbing market. It's all about the macro. It's a single issue market, and we forget the firm-specific opportunities. We forget the firm's own idiosyncrasies. And in the case of Tesla and Enphase, these are very, very, very good idiosyncrasies. I believe these companies are right at the heart of technological change, and they will take over their respective market. That is what I believe, but the market forgets about that because it just focuses on the macro. It's all about the macro right now. So, really briefly, first of all, I think just like it's all about the macro in a negative way right now for these stocks, at one point it will be all about the macro in a positive way. Once rates drop, people will say, oh, well, guess what? Because the rates have dropped, you can now engage in some big purchases. So people can finally buy solar roofs and they can buy electric cars and get $40,000 financed more easily because the rates are going down. So this macro could be a tailwind in the future, in my view. And there's also the issue, but it's a good issue in our case, that people are starting to forget about the old rates. And so people will get used to the rates of 4 to 5% if they stay in that level, which I highly doubt. But even if they were to stay at that level, people will get used to those rates. It takes about, and we see this in public relations, for example, but it takes about 18 to 24 months for people to forget about stuff. And my guess is that it will take about 18 to 24 months total for people to forget about those great interest rates that we had in 21 and 22. Takes a while. People will forget, and the 4 or 5% interest rate will be the new great rate if the rates stay this high. If we keep having a stubborn head the Fed who doesn't look at the problems in their face and doesn't really address the issues of zombie companies and kind of throws a sledgehammer into the economy. That's literally what he's doing, keeping the rates this high. But that's okay. Even if he insists, people will get used to the new rates. And we also know, I mean, that Keynesian economics is to me, it's a whole bunch of nonsense. Makes sense, right? I'm a Bitcoiner, as you know, on this channel. But we know that people don't buy stuff because they get a good rate, right? They buy stuff because they need the stuff. Over a long run, you buy the stuff because you need the stuff. You're not gonna buy a car because you get a good rate, even though I'm sure that describes some behavior, but most of the behavior is you're going to buy a car because you need a car, because your old car broke down. That's Austrian thinking right there. And I think this thinking is much closer, much more accurate to the truth. Just personal opinion here. So now that I'm done talking a little bit about the macro here, let me tell you some fundamental, high-level, keep it simple, stupid reason as to why I invest in Tesla. And I find that a lot of the channels that covers Tesla, they cover it in such great depth that the thesis is much more simple in my view. The thesis is what? Is I believe EVs are the future. Do you believe EVs are the future? Like, do you believe steel was the future when it was introduced? Did you believe the internet was the future? Did you believe, the fax machine, all of these new technologies? Did you believe they were the future? I believe EVs are the future. They are the better product. They're 0 to 1 product, and understandably so, right? The person who started the EV revolution is Elon Musk. Elon Musk was at PayPal. He was working with Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is the inventor of the 0 to 1 concept. They were former buddies, former friends. They come from the same PayPal mafia, which is the idea that to win in the marketplace, and in my view, that's business in the 21st century, to win in the marketplace, the product can't be 15 or 10% better. The product has to be orders of magnitude better. And so really quite simply asking you about EVs, and specifically Teslas, how much better are they? Well, how much better is it to charge at home? Most people who own Teslas haven't visited gas stations anymore. Is the gas station a cherished experience? Do you love going to the gas station? Most people today would say no to that question. So how much better is it to charge at home? That's point number one. Point number two is how much is it to pay less? How much is it to pay between 7 and 13 times less for each mile driven? Because it costs, what, $5, $6 to do a full quote-unquote tank of electricity for your car. It's $5 or $6. You're eliminating literally your gas bill when you switch to the electric system, to the electric car. How much better is it? Well, in that case, it's about twice better, but how much better is it to have a car that requires way less maintenance? We know Teslas, they used to have the 1,000,000-mile warranty in the early days. That's how much they believed in their cars in the early days. Now, if you look at the data, they last roughly twice as long as a gas car, roughly. But we have quite a few million car Teslas that are around. That used to be their marketing campaign. And how much better, and this is the topic of this year, right, with 8/8 coming up, August 8th, and the announcement on August 8th, how much better is it to have a car that drives itself? Is it 10x times better? Is it 100 times better? Well, I don't know. But when you have a product that is better, right, drives itself, and I could have put so much more stuff, accelerates faster, doesn't pollute, I could have said so much more. When you have a better product that is also 10 times cheaper, at least to operate, right, and it will be cheaper to buy too, right, they will be cheaper to buy, they will be cheaper than gas cars, then in that case, people are going to flock to the product. People are going to switch to the product. People don't buy CDs anymore. They use Spotify because Spotify has 107 million songs. People use Netflix. Linear TV is almost dead in the US. Almost nobody uses linear TV anymore. I think the number is just crossed under 40%, and we're well towards the 30% of people using linear TV. These switches, these product adoptions are inevitable, and in my view, just like steel or electricity was inevitable, I see EVs are inevitable, and the leader in EV is Teslas. And I don't know in your area, if you live in the US or if you live in Europe, you might not see it as much because Europe has smaller streets and they don't have the Model 2 yet. But if you live in the US, in my Texas area, I live in the heart of oil country. In Texas, in the heart of the oil land, if you go to the fancier areas, you can see that Teslas literally litter the streets. They are everywhere. They litter the streets. The mode when you drive around, that's the Model Y. It's just about everywhere. They are everywhere. These cars are everywhere. I officially, last week, I stopped. My family is here, so my family keeps pointing out on this here Cybertruck. I officially decided we stop counting the Cybertrucks because we've seen too many of them by now. So I can't wait for them to release the numbers to see those numbers on the Cybertrucks. But we've seen too many of them. We've stopped counting them. Right, it's like the real life Instagram or something. And the richy fancy parts of town, by the way. For these parts of town, in my view, the Teslas will be as widespread as iPhones, and we're already getting there in some areas. Right, there are some areas where every other driveway has a Tesla. So if you know anything about 0 to 1, if you've read the book 0 to 1, you know that the solution to business success is to go for the monopoly. Tesla's trying to go for the monopoly. And so I don't know if we'll have a kind of company that can reach a market share even higher than iPhone. I don't know, but it sure looks like it when you look at GM dropping their guidance for EVs and buying back shares, right? So the valuation, sure, the Tesla valuation is a little high, although it's not that high if you look at it on price to sales basis. But my spreadsheet doesn't work for a company like Tesla. It doesn't work for a company like Enphase. The only reason why it doesn't work is because my spreadsheet is too short-sighted. It only looks at the next 12 months. I should really be looking at the next 10 years. What's that sustainable revenue growth over the next 10 years? And a way to get to that sustainable revenue growth is, let's say there's about roughly 80 million cars sold per year in the world. What's going to be Tesla's share? If there's 80 million cars sold in the world, what's Tesla's share going to be? Is it going to be 20%? Is it going to be 30%? Well, 20% of 80 is 20 million. It's pretty close to the initial guidance they had given us. And so, maybe it's not in 2030 that they reach that. Maybe it's in 2034, as I said, in 10 years. But are they, iPhone, the market share of iPhone is 25% around the world. Could Tesla achieve that? I think so. I think it could achieve that. And in the fancy parts of town, in the fancy parts of the US, could they achieve 50%? I also think so. And no, I am not some all-in moon boy or whatever some people say in the comments. No, it's you drive around, you just see it everywhere. You used to see Toyota's success back in the late 2000s. You used to see Toyota Corollas everywhere in the late 2000s. Now it's a tangible success. So, and lastly, let me conclude on this on valuation. As far as I'm concerned, most governments still have that 2035 gas car ban going. And I realize there's a lot of political campaigns right now, and a lot of candidates are saying they're going to remove the gas ban. But as far as I'm concerned, most governments still have that gas ban. And as far as I believe, that gas ban, lifting the gas ban, that won't really be necessary because I think we'll already be there. GM just halved its EV guidance today. They've already given up. While Tesla is growing still in the low double digits, GM just dished their guidance. They halved it. They prefer to do a buyback, and that GM buyback they announced today, by the way, it already feels like the Sears buyback in 2005. If you followed the decade-long Valley of Despair and Death of Sears, that was preceded by a major $6 billion buyback. This feels oddly similar to what GM is doing. Tesla is denying the competition the opportunity to sell any EVs profitably by keeping the prices low and just selling, and hoping to add FSD later on. And that is the monopoly strategy that has been set out in 0 to 1. That is that strategy, that new method of doing business, that new way of doing business. But if you run your companies with, MBAs that have gotten their degrees 50 years ago and still we're learning about moats, and never really heard of books like 0 to 1, you're not going to get very far. And that's the way it works. And Enphase is the same story. Rates are very high, so folks are delaying solar panel buys because rates are high. But people are getting slowly used to the higher rates, and the demand is coming back. Interest rates are not growing as fast as the rates of electricity with your utility provider, for which in many states and in many countries is a monopoly. In many countries you can't switch. The price is the price for the entire state. AI, by the way, is driving the cost of electricity way up. Do you notice how? Bitcoin mining is not really a topic of interest for anybody anymore because people have just realized that AI is going to be a tremendous draw on electricity because we're going to have maybe 1 billion people creating their own AI-generated emojis on smartphones for your conversation on TikTok or whatever, and you're just going to have AI-generated everything. Think about the cost of compute. That's going to be just insane in my view. Nuclear, as an aside, I know many of my viewers are big on nuclear. I find nuclear fascinating myself, but as far as an investment is considered, it takes decades to develop nuclear, and nuclear, might arrive late. It takes decades, and then you must transport it, and we don't have room temperature semiconductors, for example. So there's a bunch of issues in the centralization of nuclear that you don't have with solar roofs, who are decentralized. And installing solar roofs, in my view, on 87 million single-family homes in the US, in my view, that's a relatively easy task, much easier than getting approval for building new nuclear plants, even if they are the new, smaller nuclear plants that people have been talking about for the past 10 years. So solar is still the way, in my view, the nuclear reaction in the sky. And Enphase, once again, in my view, this is just my view on this channel, but Enphase has the best solution for residential. And why do we care about residential? Because residential is a much bigger market. By a long, long shot. It's a much bigger market than commercial. Residential is bigger than commercial, especially in places like Europe, where you have way more homes than retail. In the US, you have a little bit more retail space, but still, residential is bigger in both areas of the world, right? And in Asia, and in Latin America, just about everywhere. Microinverters, what do? They convert electricity to AC at the roof level. I realize this is a technicality, and if you're a macro person, you may not care about this, just like you may look at EVs as a whole and just not look at Tesla versus GM and you say they have the same opportunity. Well, you may look at solar as a whole and say everybody has the same opportunity. Yes, it's somewhat true to an extent, but there's better solutions within the pool of companies. In my view, microinverters are going to be the winning solution for residential systems. Why? Because they're less dangerous for firefighters and electricians, and a lot of cities have pushed towards the adoption of microinverters. And frankly, the optimizer seems like a patch to me. The optimizer is a patch compared to the initial solution to things like shadows and broken panels, which was the microinverters. Lots of homeowners, if you live in a house, you want to have the peace of mind of not having a giant DC cable running to your garage. If you know anything about electricity, DC cables are much bigger cables, and they're a little hazardous, to say the least. And so we know AC. We've been using AC for well over 100 years, and that's what microinverters do, and a lot of people are comfortable. Not to mention they last longer. They last 25 years. They're easy to manufacture. You manufacture in assembly lines of PCB boards, electric boards. It's mostly machines just printing the PCBs onto those green boards. It's much easier to manufacture than string inverters. String inverters are only warranted 12 years, and they're difficult to manufacture. They're heavy. They require a lot of manual labor, a lot of hand labor, a lot of drilling, a lot of impact wrenches and tightening bolts. They're the old tech. They use a bulky transformer. String inverters are heavy. Installers don't like stuff for them to install them because they're heavy. They gotta have multiple people on the job site. They're great for industrial use. They're cheaper and more efficient for industrial use. But for residential use, based on the many videos I've done on that topic, I believe Enphase is the way to go. It's the residential way to go. And beyond the tech debate, I've rarely seen such widespread support for solar from governments around the world. Governments around the world are supporting solar. And this is a lasting support, by the way. It's been the last 15 years. Governments have been pushing consistently for solar over the past 15 years. It's a consistent support, very similar to the tailwind that we see with EVs. And it's a special thing when you invest in an industry that has widespread government support, right? I can tell you that because I'm an investor in Bitcoin, as you know, and so I know what it is to have governments against you. It's such a bliss to invest in a company when governments are supporting you widespread everywhere. Governments support you. That's a major tailwind. Many tell me the IRA could get repealed. I don't think that's going to happen. Even if we get a new administration, that new administration has shown that they're able to do a 180. They did a 180 in crypto. I think they'll do a 180 on EVs and solar, just because the numbers don't lie and these technologies make sense. And the USA, by the way, for a company like Enphase, the USA, that's the smaller part of the story in my view. Europe is already on its way to being bigger for Enphase, and there's other parts of the world. Latin America is going to be big. Brazil is going to be big from them. But perhaps the biggest one for Enphase, one of the big opportunities for Enphase that I've never discussed on my channel, is India, right? India may be a big opportunity for Enphase. We know Modi, who just got re-elected in India, is very pro-solar, very pro-electric, very pro-new tech. And we could see India be a major market for a company like Enphase, just like it could be a major market for a company like Tesla, which would be something new for Western companies to really pierce that country, enter that country, and be a big market. And for Enphase, we also have another big fundamental driver of growth, which is going to be GaN inverters. GaN inverters, these gallium nitride inverters, they should be coming soon, and they should allow Enphase to capture much more IRA subsidies because they're going to be more powerful, and you're going to be able to handle much bigger panels. And so these are coming. The battery attached tailwind is also a tailwind. I see tons of tailwinds for Enphase, tons of tailwinds for Tesla. You wouldn't believe any of that if you just look at the short term, but the market is just short term, just focusing on the vote that's coming up. It's just looking short term and not looking at the underlying technology. It is, in my view, an opportunity, and that's why I'm adding to both of these companies. I added to Tesla this morning, a little bit above 168. I'm going to check now. Hopefully it goes down a little more if I can add. Then I can add. But I like these two companies. I'm still as strong and as positioned in these two companies, and that's all based on a fundamental assessment of the opportunity. So anyways, this was not investment advice. This is no financial advice. I'm still on a holiday, so I can't publish as much as I used to, but just putting this little video out to remind you that I'm here. I'll be back with more videos soon. So no financial advice. Please like, please subscribe. Thank you all who have supported me for now well over a year, and I really appreciate your support, your comments, your likes. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day.